working hard, working well. And Marcus is in! What a finish! What a start for Shrewsbury Town! They're turning the league table on its head, and they are loving it!
Hello and welcome to episode 11. We're back again. Wasn't necessarily planned to do a podcast this Friday, but here we are. Disclaimer right at the start of the podcast: Sky and work basically worked against me this week, and I was in Ireland when the game was on. I managed to watch it, but unfortunately I missed it. I wasn't there at the Meadow. And Mike, what did I miss out on?
You missed out on what I described earlier as probably the best Thursday night in my life. You know, there's been some other good nights, but it was one that wasn't expected. It was absolutely incredible. The atmosphere, the game, the tactics, the players, everything just combined in an all-time game, an all-time evening, I think. So I don't want to rub it in too much, Ollie, but you are an idiot for not going. You should have quit your job. You should have not got on that plane. Yeah, it was amazing. Incredible. And we'll get to it all, but yeah, what a night. What a night. What about you, Chris? You must have loved it.
Mike, to me, playing Wrexham's the ultimate. It's the game I want to win more than any other. My background tells the story. I'm living it and loving it. And it's just, I've been on a high since last night. My voice is struggling a little bit, and it's actually got worse through today, I think, for some reason. So if I sound a bit croaky, that is an entirely Shrewsbury Town related injury, as it were. I've shouted myself hoarse, and I'm struggling today, but it was immense. The atmosphere was out of this world. And I loved it. And we've waited a long time. Obviously, we didn't play Wrexham for so long, did we? But that's our first win over them in, I think, about 17 years. So it's been a long time. And obviously, we lost to them last year. We lost to them earlier this season. So my God, it was overdue, and I loved it. Yeah, loved it.
Did we beat them in the season they got relegated? Was that 17 years ago?
Yeah, but that was back in about 2008, believe it or not. Yeah.
Jesus.
They had 15 years in non-league, and then obviously they've worked
The
their way up to
glory
League
years.
One now.
The glory years.
Yeah.
The golden years.
The glory years for us, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I missed
Although
out
in a
on it
way,
on
I kind of missed them because I missed nights like last night.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the thing, isn't it? Like, obviously, why we enjoyed them, never appearing on anyone's Twitter timeline. And to be honest, they haven't really been on my Twitter timeline today, unsurprisingly. But yeah, it was obviously, it's good to have them back in some ways, to have a rival. And here they are back in League One. Obviously, they're flying high coming to this game. Obviously, Shrewsbury Town, we know where we are in division. So I imagine their fans are expecting probably quite an easy victory after obviously the game that at the racecourse ground, which they won quite comfortably 3-0. But obviously we came into the game with Ainsworth at the helm. We'll talk about transfers and stuff later on in the podcast. So this podcast, we'll talk about the Wrexham game. We'll talk about transfers. We've got a little insight. Maybe we can share that we've heard a few things about the takeover. We can share that as well. And yeah, we'll look ahead. So you're looking forward to getting to this Wrexham game. It's going to be a good one. Just before we kind of go into the game, Mike, as a good, proud Salopian, a normal chap in Block 17, but Chris was in heated seats in the posh and prawn brigade area again, Chris.
Yeah, I was in the best seats in the house last night, as they bill it, and I've got to say it was fantastic. Kudos to the club for what they've got there. So if anybody watching this ever gets the chance to go in the best seats in the house for a game, I encourage you to do it. They looked after us well last night. It was really good. Food before the game, as you said, heated seats for the match itself and all of that. You got to see the manager before the game, post-match interviews with the man of the match, and blimey, Miss Stud even got a photograph with the chairman last night. So Roland Wycherley was in good form last night. I can tell you he's a fan, just like you and me, and a win over Wrexham matters as much to him as it does to us. He was enjoying himself last night. So yeah, great experience, fantastic, and yeah, really enjoyed it. So thank you to everyone at the club for that.
Cool. And anyone who's watching on YouTube on video, you can see we put a little bit of extra effort in this evening. So not only obviously we're wearing Shrewsbury Town shirts, we've also got some background. So yeah, we're going to carry on trying doing the video thing, and hopefully we can make it a bit better as we go through. So yeah, appreciate all the kind comments we had from doing the last video. So that was great. So yeah, let's jump into the game.
Yeah, as Ollie said, this is a one-game special tonight. So we will be covering, drumroll please, Shrewsbury Town 2, Wrexham 1. I would say what everybody would consider quite an unexpected result in front of the home attendance of 8,789, which I think is not mad, not quite a sellout, but yeah, pretty decent turnout from the locals, especially the game we all expected to get beaten in. So yeah, kudos to everybody that turned out last night. But yeah, Ollie, do you want to take us through the team first of all?
Yeah, so in the game, Marcus scored both goals, 17 minutes and 48 minutes. Obviously, there was a penalty, but he didn't score that, but he scored the rebound. And then Fletcher scored on 23 minutes from a Ryan Barnett cross. As you said, Mike, good attendance there for Shrewsbury. Hopefully we can... There was about 1,000 off the full attendance. I think probably some of that was maybe a bit of segregation and corner off some of the bits. Obviously, it meant it wasn't full. But yeah, good following. And Shrewsbury Town fans certainly made themselves heard. Definitely hear them on the TV. So Hoops started for Shrewsbury Town. So we had the same goalkeeper, same back three, and two wing backs, the same we've had for a while. Ojo and Lloyd came to the side. Replacing Lloyd. Replacing Bloxham and Shipley out of the starting lineup. So obviously a bit of a change here. We played, I guess you could call it 3-4-1-2, wing backs with a number 10. Chris, what was your thoughts when you saw the starting lineup?
It wasn't that hard to predict, really, was it? Because we're actually down now to, well, before this game at least, we were down to 20 senior pros. Because as well as those 11 and the subs, the only players who missed out last night were Joe Young and Harrison Biggins. Everyone else was involved because that's all we've got. So it wasn't that hard to guess what was going to happen. Possibly the one area was the midfield. Ojo playing in the middle there maybe surprised a few people. Had a really good game. I mean, he did really well last night. We'll talk about, I'm sure, everyone in a bit, but it was strong performance. But it's been the shape we've played for a few weeks now. We're built on that solid back three, aren't we, with wing backs, and then he just sort of tinkers with the way he sets out the midfield from game to game, and it's working for us at the moment. So yeah, I wasn't too surprised by the team, and I was comfortable with it within the limitations of what we've got in our squad right now. I suspect by the time we go to Charlton in a week's time, there might be one or two new faces in that team, but we had to make do last night, and we made do very well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy that as a 3-4-1-2. I see it more as a 5 at the back as usual. The wing backs are definitely filling out those wide defensive positions as opposed to playing as high as maybe you're presenting. But I think. And I think the midfield three of Gilead, Ojo, and Castledine very flat. I thought in when we were defending, and then Castledine would be the one to go forward. So it was a really nice formation that allowed us to transition from defence to attack, and made us sort of take up different positions depending on when we had the ball and when we didn't. So I think that was something that really counteracted and nullified a lot of what Wrexham were trying to do. In that we sort of pivoted to defend their avenues for attack, and then when we came to attack ourselves, we went and found the spaces as opposed to staying very rigid in sort of what we'd say as a shape, I suppose. But yeah, like Chris says, it's the team that picks itself at the moment, isn't it? We barely had enough to fill the bench last night, which was a concern. But yeah, it didn't stop us, and hopefully, yeah, bodies in through the door soon.
And what would you say was the first? How would you kind of describe the first 15 minutes, Mike?
It was blood and thunder stuff, as you'd expect from a derby. And I think that from the off, we were on the front foot. We were pressing, we were harrying. We were actually playing a bit of football as well, and I thought that we got off in the manner that absolutely we needed to do. We didn't sit in and try and soak up the first 10 and let Wrexham get a foothold in the game. And I think that Wrexham were quite surprised by the approach that we took. They I don't think they expect us to be as in their faces as we were, and as sort of as well organised as well. I think is the other thing, is that we pressed as groups. We dropped into lovely defensive lines, and there was a real nice shape to what we were doing last night, that I think Wrexham were probably expecting the team they saw at the racecourse, who didn't have a lot of fight, didn't have a lot of attitude, and were fairly disorganised. They encountered a very, very different beast. And I think that came from probably all the prep work that Ainsworth's done in terms of getting them really up for the game. I think you could tell that Ainsworth knew it was a derby, and he knew it was important. I think some of his post-match where he'd been around the town and people were saying, we don't care if we get relegated, beat Wrexham. I think he really fed off that and picked up on that. And that was the attitude that the players had. And so the first 10 minutes, I think we shocked them. And I think we made sure that they didn't grab the game from the initial periods and dominate it going forward. I think after the first 10, we faded a little bit. I think we sort of scared ourselves a bit. And and let them back into it. But then I think when we scored the goal, it kind of got us back into it again. But yeah, the first 10 were exactly what we needed, front foot stuff.
And Chris, you can share a bit of insight. What did Marcus say about his position and Lloyd's position in the same game plan on Thursday night?
Yeah, so Marquis was the sponsors man of the match last night in the Sovereign Lounge. So the man of the match is brought in there and says a few words afterwards, and we were lucky enough to see that last night. He was really insightful, Marquis. You get the impression he's an intelligent guy and takes his role as captain quite seriously. And he was talking about the tactics and saying how he and George Lloyd were being deployed to press the two wider centre backs. So they said that obviously, but Wrexham were also playing a back three in the middle, and they were pressing the left and the right centre back, but leaving the middle centre back free. And they said that was entirely deliberate. They were willing to give that player possession because it was harder from there for Wrexham to play their natural balls out to the wing, which is the way that apparently Wrexham like to play week in, week out. And this was all about stifling Wrexham's natural game and just making it a little bit difficult for them. And Marcus was saying that it might have looked a bit odd that he and Lloyd were quite a long way apart compared to how you would normally see a front two, but that was entirely deliberate last night. They had a plan, they played to that plan, and they executed it. And you can't really argue with that. We definitely made life difficult for Wrexham. You look at their wide players. Ryan Barnett, next Shrewsbury lad, we know him. I thought he was very good last night in patches. He was their main threat, but he probably didn't get the ball as much as he'd like, and that was presumably down to our game plan. We made it difficult for them to utilise him as often as they'd want to. When they did manage to, it was his crosses that caused us more difficulty than anything else. But a combination of our tactics and Luca Hall working very hard against him actually last night, I thought, made it difficult for him.
Do you mean against Benin? Because he was Benin. But yeah, in terms of
against Benin, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say on that point, I was amazed that he didn't run at Benin more often. He seemed when he ran at Benning and he took him on, he had the running of him. He could go around him at will at times, and it showed for the goal when he just got in and lifted the ball over. And it was amazing that they didn't run that play more often. I think Ollie, you're probably going to jump on something around the Wrexham's approach, because you pointed out that it was odd that they didn't choose to go around the sides more often.
Yeah, it was, for me, it was quite a big part of the game plan at the racecourse ground that they would go down one flank, and if it didn't quite work, they'd go back, and almost like a U shape. So you'd go back to those wide centre backs, back round. And if you notice, I always find that their central midfielders don't really get the ball very often. So they almost like just ignore them, and they either try and play balls through the middle to their strikers, and that's when our players were winning their personal battles and we're trying to win the second balls. But I thought the wing backs did a good job of kind of limiting the opportunity to pass to their wing backs, and then that stifled them. And surprisingly, then they weren't able to do something else. And we'll come back to Wrexham in the second half, because to be fair, they got even worse in the second half. But yeah, we'll come on to that later on. But I'd say the goal, the first goal was fantastic. Good header from Josh Feeney. Always love a centre back who can really put some distance on a header. Makes a huge difference. I think last time we had a young player could header that far was maybe like Connor Goldson. I also thought he had a superb ability to head the ball away. He headed the ball clear, comes to Lloyd in their half. He does so well against O'Connell to flick it to Marquis, who runs on. And yeah, Mike, what does he do when he runs it on goal?
Well, it's a sort of, to take it back a step further, you talk about George Lloyd against Yohan O'Connell. He made him look much last night. That Yohan O'Connell is twice the size and twice the width of George Lloyd, and he got bullied. He got bullied by what is quite a small, diminutive striker, but George Lloyd was the energy and the power and the pace and the aggression he put into that game last night was something we haven't seen of him. I thought he was incredible last night, Lloyd, and rightly got man of the match in I think it probably on the radio or somewhere. Was it on Sky?
On Sky, got man of the match, yeah. And I think rightly, also maybe on BBC Shropshire as well.
Yeah, and that flick on is just an example of it. He gets up, and O'Connell, who's supposed to be a big, strong centre-half, you couldn't lay a glove on him. Gets the flick on, and Marquis does brilliantly to get the ball under, takes that brilliant first touch, and then the centre half he's facing up appears to show him to the outside. Thinks, if I put him wide, he sort of tried to cover the centre ground and pushed Marquis a little bit wide, offered him that space. Marquis said, "Thanks very much," popped into it, and the finish is a beautifully bent finish right into the bottom corner. Keeper couldn't get across to it, and that's exactly what I thought we were going to get when we bought John Marquis, a clinical, proven finisher with pedigree from his whole career of goal scoring, and the mental in block 17 and around the whole rest of the ground when we scored that was one for the ages. We went absolutely ballistic. I don't think I've come down off it yet, even when they scored. My little lad was beside himself. We were bouncing, everybody around us, and it'll live long in the memory, that goal. And I thought, oh, well, that's a nice point from tonight. And when they eventually win, at least we'll have that to hold on to. Like the goal where we went 1-0 up against Liverpool. But just crazy, we lost ourselves. We lost ourselves for quite a good amount of time there. I don't know what it was like over in the posh sheets, Chris, but that was some crazy moment.
I think it went mental everywhere, Mike. It was just the same for us. We went absolutely spare when that went in. The whole goal was well executed, and I think the two of you have described it well. The only thing I think I'd add is when George Lloyd wins that header with O'Connell doubles the problem, as it were, by also falling on his arse, because he didn't have the chance to recover. He didn't have the chance to get back and close Marcus down because he was too busy getting up again, and it was embarrassing for him, really. But Marcus still had a lot to do, and the finish was quality, wasn't it? Strikes it so hard, and I think you could see the moment it left its boot, it was going in. I swear we were going up in the air to celebrate before the ball had actually reached the net. It was fantastic. It was just one hell of a moment. Yeah. And like you, I'm a realist, so I'm sitting there thinking, I want to win this game, but we're probably still going to lose. But hey, at least we've got this. We scored a goal this time, kind of thing. I thought that's progress from our last two games with Wrexham. So yeah, it was a good feeling.
I honestly felt a bit like shit. Now what do we do? Like, we weren't expected to score that early, and have we got a game plan to deal with that? I thought maybe we surprised ourselves, but yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I thought the Shrewsbury Town fans were superb. They started the game. They were in loud voice. And then we went up a notch when we scored. But unfortunately, 6 minutes later, Wrexham scored a goal. And yeah, this is what Wrexham do really well. This is their only game plan, really, is to get the ball wide. And it is effective when it works. Ball comes to Barnett, runs down the right-hand wing. Unfortunately, has to be critical of Benning again. Barnett doesn't have a left foot. He's got a really good right, and he just gives him space to cross the ball. And then, unfortunately, Morgan Feeney gets caught, and Fletcher basically just towers over him, overpowers him, and has quite an easy header to head it in the back of the net. And yeah, Chris, I thought that was from a Shrewsbury Town perspective, that was a very poor goal to concede, especially only 6 minutes after we took the lead.
So I've got two things to say about that goal. Number one, that goal was made in Shrewsbury, by the way, because Ryan Barnett, born in Shrewsbury, raised by our club, as it were. Stephen Fletcher, also born in Shrewsbury to a military family. So even when Wrexham score against us, they still need Shrewsbury people to do it, apparently. But there we go. But the other thing about that goal, my point number two, that goal starts from the halfway line, from a foul on one of our players, at least. It looked like a foul to me.
Yeah,
and it certainly
was a foul.
It looked like a foul to Gareth Ainsworth, because obviously where I'm sat, he's right in front of me. He was going nuts at the fourth official, even as the move was breaking. And he was basically saying to the fourth official, if they score now, that's an outrage, because that's a free kick, and obviously they do instantly go and score. And he was fuming. And yes, everything you said about maybe mistakes we've made in the build up to that, it's true, but it's still the indignation at seeing the goal happen when it should have been a free kick. And it makes the irony from me, I think we'll talk about it later, the reaction from some of the Wrexham fans who've accused that referee last night of being pro Shrewsbury or whatever, and he's basically gifted them that goal on a plate from not giving us an obvious free kick. And I've got blue and amber specs, and maybe you're better positioned to comment than me, Ollie, because I've not seen replays. I'm relying on what I saw live with my own two eyes. But it was right in front of me.
Yeah, it was almost a tackle from behind on Gilead as he was kind of moving from Ollie Rathbone. I thought it was a free kick, I think you have to, in defence of Wrexham fans, which pains me to say, I think there's a lot of idiotic Wrexham fans who've probably only been following the sport for like 2 minutes. They don't really understand what they're talking about. Who kind of like maybe like cloud like kind of the impression you get online from Wrexham fans. I didn't think
on that theme, Ollie, actually, just very quickly, while you say in defence of Wrexham fans, I'll also say in credit to them, the moment we went 1-0 up, they were cheering for their team, and for them, in the build up to the goal, they didn't go on their team's back I was impressed by their response to going 1-0 down. It was a bunch of fans who were used to winning, and even they thought, they obviously expected to come back, and you could tell in the way they were supporting their team. Credit to them for that. But
while we're talking about the referee, let's just do this now. Let's
Sorry.
not say we don't do the game in chronological order. There's also an opportunity in the second half where Lloyd obviously gave us 2 penalties. We'll come on to the first one in a moment, but the second one, Claim, I wasn't sure in real time, but I'll always bow down to Andy Pooley, of Pooley on Twitter. He thought it was a penalty. He thought that the centre back lifted his legs up, a bit like David Beckham with Simone in the World Cup. Did that, caught Lloyd, meant he couldn't get through. He thought it was a penalty. I wasn't quite sure in real time. You guys, we were chatting at the time on WhatsApp. You guys both thought that, Mike, you thought that was a penalty.
Yeah. Well, when he's lying on the floor, his legs are flat. And when George Lloyd starts to go over him, he lifts his legs up. That's not an attempt to stand up. That's an attempt to block the player's progression. So that it's definitely
attempt. It wasn't an attempt. He more than an attempt. He did it.
Well, yeah, he did.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I thought it was a penalty. When I saw it live, I thought it was a penalty, and I have actually seen clips of that one on social media today. I still think it's a penalty, and I think it's a classic example of a referee who's given one and is not willing to give the second one easily. How often does that happen? Once they've given one, they feel like to get another one, it has to be really, really bad. You kind of have to karate chop someone or go through them at head height or something. You never seem to get the second one. I'm convinced that if we hadn't had the first, he'd have given that second one. But in the end, it didn't matter, but it could have done, couldn't it? It could have done.
Yeah. And what was your kind of thoughts at half-time, Chris, as you went and got your prawn sandwich?
As I went and got my... It was a cup of tea and a biscuit at halftime in the Sovereign. That was my halftime treat. Very nice. What was my thoughts at halftime? I think exhaustion for one, because that was the pace of that game and the freneticness and the excitement, the frustration that we weren't winning the game, but the sense that it was there for us. At that point, that you could see how much we were up for it, and I was excited for the second half. At that point, I was buying into. I was ready to be hurt, if you like. Normally, I protect myself emotionally. I expect to lose a game, and then anything else is a bonus. But I think at halftime last night, I was dreaming of a win over Wrexham, and I thought it could happen. It's not to say I thought it would, but I was believing, that's for sure. I was up for it because we feed our energy off the team, don't we? And they're up for it, and they got the crowd up for it. And halftime, I was happy with where we were. Bit frustrated that we'd thrown away a lead again. We've done that a lot lately, but having conceded the equaliser, we didn't cave. We responded well, and I was at halftime quietly confident. Maybe.
Anything to
add? What
about
you, Mike?
Yeah, I was much like Chris. I thought, I was pretty positive. I thought Wrexham were poor. I thought they were poor all night. I thought they had little spells, but they generally didn't trouble us a huge amount. They didn't make me feel like they were there to rip the game off. So we were hanging in, we were competing, we were dominating in periods as well. And I just thought, if we can pick it up like that again, we definitely got a chance of winning the game. So it was nervy, and I thought that after we scored, it felt like the longest 10 minutes of my life, because it was just that after 6 minutes they score and you think, here we go. But my only concerns were, I thought that the Feeney-Fletcher was a bit of a mismatch. I thought Fletcher was having the run of Feeney a little bit. He was dominating physically like he did at the racecourse. But actually the second half, he sort of faded Fletcher a little bit. I think his age was catching up with him a bit. The legs went out of him, and Feeney was able to sort of hold his own against him there. But the other thing I was going to note about their goal that they scored, which feeds into our goal in the second half, is that we discussed it on the pod a few weeks ago. Gareth Ainsworth said in a post-match interview that he was setting the team little challenges about rectifying problems. And one of them was not conceding shortly after we score, which they failed at in the first half.
Yeah.
But the second challenge that he set them was start not conceding, actually starting strongly after half time, which, considering, we scored not long after time, 48 minutes, it shows that actually some of the lessons and some of the learnings that he's trying to get in there are really digging in. And the other lesson the challenge he gave them was, after we score, don't concede quickly again. So actually, when we scored the second and we won it from the second, in the second half, it shows that, are we getting there with some of the stuff he's putting into them, getting through there? We're not, we're starting stronger in games. We conceded shortly after the first goal. We didn't concede shortly after the second goal, and actually went on to strengthen through the rest of the game. So at halftime, I was positive, and actually the opening period of the second half was really positive, and actually got us right back up into it again, didn't it? Fans wise, and everybody was buzzing. Yeah.
No, it was, that second goal was obviously key, and obviously to winning the game. And Gareth Ainsworth after the game said he'd have a word with Marquis about taking penalties. Not the best penalty, again, the middle again. But he managed to score. And then, obviously another special moment, Chris.
Oh, fantastic, wasn't it? Like you say, frustrating to watch him miss another penalty. He spoke about that in the sponsors lounge afterwards as well. He said he'd made up his mind he was going to go down the middle again. He said the goalkeeper did dive, but he said the problem with the Conqueror is he's 6'5" with size 15 feet, and he stuck one of those out and got his foot to it. So that's the way Marcus described it. Having watched it back again, I do think it's not the best penalty again. And I'm listening to what Ainsworth had to say after the match. I'm not sure that Marcus will take the next one we get, but at least, it doesn't matter because he did have the perceptiveness to follow up quickly, get on the end of it, and score. So, yeah, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, does it? His reaction at least made up for it. But yeah, it's obviously not something we want to see, because if we don't want a regular miss from our penalty taker, because you're not always going to get that rebound. But perfect start to the second half, still, wasn't it? 3 minutes in, and we're 2-1 up again. Yeah, dreamland.
And on that point about following in, Chris, I watched the replay today. And when he hits it, he comes back off the keeper. Marquis is first there because he reacts well. But about another 4 or 5 of our players are following in. And I think there's only 1 or 2 Wrexham players going in after it.
I noticed that as well.
When I saw that, I thought that was symptomatic of the approach. Wrexham did not look up for the Derby battle. We looked massively up for it. We were keyed up in Ainsworth style, I would say. And they looked like they turned up to roll over a team they thought was crap. We gave them a bit of fight, and they just didn't know what to do about it. And I think that was symptomatic. It's not being on your toes. It's not winning your individual battles, and not doing the bare basics of competing to win a match that is a battle. We made it a battle. We drew them into a battle, and they didn't look up for it. And I think if I was a Wrexham fan, thank God I'm not, and I never will be, I would be fuming with that team, because they're doing well in the league this season. They're third. They're doing great and everything, but the big game you want, the one you circle on your calendar when the fixtures come out, is you want to beat Shrewsbury at Shrewsbury Place. And they rolled over and had their tummies tickled at times. They really were not competitive and combative.
Yeah.
And the problem
for them was
their players, particularly their captain, spent more time arguing with our fans than he did concentrating on competing. And they completely lost the mental battle as well, I think.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because there's 2 things I want to mention about this. A Wrexham podcast called Fearless in Devotion. And he commented on the penalty as well, lack of urgency in the response to the Marcus penalty. And then also he talks about the lack of fight, lack of grit, and lack of effort from their players, and was noted by the Wrexham players, as Wrexham fans as well, who seem to struggle. They have a superb home record. I think they might even be top for home results, but they're like 16th for away results. I think there was quite a lot of whinging Wrexham fans after the game, not only about the referee, but also about the performance from their players as well, because I thought they hoped and expected they would do more, but unfortunately for us, they didn't.
It's a long-running trend for them as well, that. They've had a problem away from home, not just this season, but going right back to their conference time in this regime. It's been interesting. I've seen a few Wrexham fans saying they almost need 2 managers. They want Parkinson to manage them at racecourse and find someone else to do it away from home, because they consistently seem to be having the same problems. Well, yeah, that's not our problem, as it were, is it? On this occasion, thank goodness it continued.
Yeah, and it was a great moment to score that goal, and good for Marcus. He's done 6 goals this season now, which is good to see. Because finally got a striker. Obviously, that's not a prolific amount, but hopefully he can get double figures by the end of the season.
Speaking of whinging and moaning, is this the part of the pod where we need to talk about Mr. McLean? Because
I think now we talk about personalities. Maybe we could call this.
If he was captain of my club, the way he's carrying on, I think he was sort of a bit of an architect of their own downfall last night. I think his lack of composure and professionalism, and the way he was reacting to the jibes and the shouts from Block 18. I mean, the throwing on of things, they're trying to get on the pitch. That's not acceptable. Don't condone that anyway. But the way he got drawn into it, essentially what became a sort of a pitched battle against the abuse he was getting from Block 18, the verbal abuse that all footballers get, when they're
19 as well, wasn't it?
Blood 19, but when they're giving it back and when they're sort of shushing and sort of giving it all that, he was making kissy faces, all sorts of stuff, right? He can give it, but he completely took himself out of the game, because whenever he was getting some volley of abuse from the town fans, he was looking at them. He wasn't looking at the ball. He wasn't looking at the pitch. And then when the ball came to him, you could tell he was like, I'll show him. I'll do something. I'll whip across in. and he'd hit the first man, or he'd kick it out of play, or he'd get the ball took off him because he was overcomplicating it. It was amazing to see a player of his reputed ability and his like being the captain of a team to be drawn into such absolute nonsense and sort of nullify his own effect on the game, to the point where some of his teammates are coming over and saying, pack it in, get involved in the game, be a teammate, don't be somebody, you know, getting involved with the fans. And he was like, oh, fuck off, you know, he was being a bit of a prick. And I thought, you know, I absolutely loved him doing that, because he went off with egg on his face, and I don't like him as a footballer. He's a captain of Wrexham. Why would I? Culminating, I could probably get to it, in Toto Enciala's absolutely crunching tackle in the last minute to put him on his arse and send him home with tears on his cheeks, mate. Brilliant. Like, blow us a kiss now. Cool. See you later. But I just thought, I was amazed by his approach. Mental.
And I think there's a line, isn't there, about like, it's fine you're having players that kind of, you know, do a little bit of shithousery, cause a little bit of aggro, but he puts far too much effort into doing it. And it's fine if you're winning all the time, that's great. Yeah. But he lost his head. And let's say if it was a battle between block 18 and 19 versus James McLean, there was only one winner. Their captain was not focused in the game. He had a really, really poor performance. And then, that was almost like a secret weapon we had last night, because we the fans enabled him to have a really, really poor game. And then obviously that was to the benefit of Shrewsbury Town, because their captain had a bit of a shocker. But to be fair, he wasn't the only player on their team who had a bit of a shocker, because they had quite a few players that had a quite poor game.
But it happened at a really important time as well. After we scored the second, they were obviously going to pile forward and make an effort to get back in the game. And all that sort of just completely broke all their rhythm, took all the momentum out of their play.
You're talking about when the game stopped for a second as well.
But when this game was stopped, but also in around that as well, for him to react to the crowd, it just takes him out of the game, and it just stops things happening quickly. And they couldn't take quick throws, they couldn't take quick free kicks, and I just couldn't get my head around it. But the period when the game stopped was it wasn't great for the reason why it stopped, with people trying to get on the pitch and stuff. But it really, in a moment when they were starting to pile a bit of pressure on it, just completely sucked all the air out of their balloon, and they had to reset from cold. And it was sort of well timed. I think the Town fans who were doing it in the right way, let's say, to sort of affect an atmosphere and make a sort of an intimidating atmosphere at the ground, and they had an effect on the performance. They were the 12th man last night. I wasn't in 18 and 19. I wasn't doing it, but what was going on down there was affecting the game in a negative way for Wrexham and a positive way for Shrewsbury. And I just thought that needed reflecting without condoning throwing things on the pitch and trying to dive on the pitch. There's a line, but that atmosphere we created last night was the most intimidating I think I've seen the Meadow in a long time. We always say about other teams creating intimidating atmospheres that are difficult to play in, and we complain about how our crowd are quite meek and quite sort of accepting of defeats and sort of poor performances. But last night made a huge impact, and I think if we can do that more regularly this season and make the Town a difficult place to come to, I think that's only going to be in our benefit when we're battling. Make it a place that you've got to come to a battle, I think.
And Chris, obviously you're on the opposite side of the stadium to Mike. How did it look like from your side? Did it fit? Do you concur with what Mike's saying, or did you see it a bit differently?
Agree with lots of what he said. I'd probably make a couple of points. McLean got stick from all around the ground. He was getting stick even when he was over on our side as well in the first half, as it were. He's one of those players, isn't he, that gets targeted consistently. He's a love to hate player. He gets stick wherever he goes, and he kind of brings that on himself for all the reasons Mike's talked about. And there's lots of them out there. He's probably one of the more extreme examples. To an extent, we've got one in John Marquis. I think he's one of those players that a lot of people don't like, and I think there's a lot of Shrewsbury fans who didn't like him before we signed him.
But he's a little shithouse compared to James McLean. Let's be fair.
Yeah. Like I said, levels. Yeah. But he responds to it. At least he did last night in the right way. He channels that, and often McLean does. There's a reason he's had a good career, and sometimes the abuse he gets, he seems to be able to use to fire him up to put in good performances. Like Mike said last night, he very much didn't. He put in a very poor performance, and I will say, you used the phrase, Ollie, about there being a line, and I'm all for verbal banter. I'm all for interaction with players. Give him a bit of stick, that's fine. But whatever we think about McLean, he's a man doing his job, and he's got a right to feel safe on that football pitch. And people shouldn't be chucking lighters or whatever it was being thrown at him. It was your side, so you'll have seen better than me. But I'm told that for one of the throw-ins, they had to put a steward between the crowd and him to kind of shield him from the missiles, as it were. To me, that's unacceptable. That's just simply unacceptable. And any Shrewsbury fan doing that deserves to be chucked out of the ground. And if there's anybody listening to this podcast who is doing that and thinks I'm an idiot or I'm woke, then I'm willing to take that. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, that's just unacceptable behaviour, and I hope they're dealt with for it, because we don't want those kind of people let our club down. The people who create a great atmosphere, fine, that's part of football. Like I said, I want a big, fiery, intimidating atmosphere, but I want it done in a way that doesn't leave the opposition players literally at physical threat. That's not on.
I'd say credit to that steward, to be fair, because he caught about 3 vapes and about 15 quid's worth of change as well. And if he'd got hit by that, he might have got hurt, to be fair. But so credit to him. But what I thought was quite interesting is his positioning in front of McLean stopped him taking any long throws. He had to stand right on the touchline to take his throw in. So it's sort of slightly tactical positioning by the steward as well, which I thought was quite nice. But you shouldn't be lobbing stuff on the pitch. I mean, because apparently Wrexham are going to dob us into the FA and we might get a fine for it, which, considering we ain't got no money, is not particularly productive for the club in the long run. But like you said, there's ways of doing it. I think 90% of what the fans were doing last night around the ground, but from what I saw in 18-19 was the right approach. It was verbal, it was intimidating, it was nasty, it was Derby Day. The 10% that was going a bit over the top should be should certainly be addressed. And they got chucked out and should get banning orders, whatever, if they got caught. But yeah, I just thought credit to the crowd, actually. And like you say, the South Stand, they never stop singing. 2 singing areas, when that gets going, it's an amazing thing. And I think this links on to what Ollie's going to talk about. Gareth Ainsworth conducting the choir again, just like against Birmingham, turning around and really pumping that crowd up. He was box office last night, wasn't he, Ollie?
Yeah, he was fantastic, wasn't he? He not only did he get the players going, but he gets them going. But he gets it going at the right amount. Like we had a few yellow cards for professional fouls and stuff. Got no problem with professional fouls. I love a professional foul. To stop counter attacks, stuff like that. But he gets them going, but not so much that they're overly aggressive or anything. It's the perfect balance. And then obviously Chris, again, you sitting in that different seat for a change. Could you take your eye off him? Because he kicks. And have you ever seen a manager, even a Shrewsbury manager or any manager, and not act? I say act like he does on the sideline. That sounds derogatory. It's not my intention at all. But he does act out a lot on the sideline.
He's living and breathing the game through every second of it, or he certainly was last night. Anyway, whenever there was a long ball coming into midfield, he's up heading it. He's clearing it himself. He's putting the tackles in. When there's a tackle to be made, he's there sliding his foot in on the ground in there. He just can't help himself. He's acting out what he wants his players to be doing, and I think that's just the way he controls himself, I suppose. It was all done. None of it was over the top, but he's good-natured. I watched his interactions with the 4th official, and it was quite friendly most of the time. He's an interesting and very likeable bloke, actually, to watch, but I couldn't get over how much he was really getting involved in the game. Yeah, it was just it was great to see, and his team seemed to feed off it anyway. You could see them looking over to him, and they're listening to him, and he's very much in control in that dugout. He's got Dobbo next to him, and he's got the goalie coach as well, who gets involved with shouting out the instructions. But it's crystal clear who's in charge through every second of it. It's very much the Gareth Ainsworth show, and right now I think we're all quite happy with that.
Yeah, and as well, we're talking about individuals. So obviously, George Lloyd, who we mentioned, had a superb game. He put in a real shift. John Marcus as well put in a real shift. Everyone put in a real shift, to be fair. Everyone had Huel, I thought, had a good game as well. And Blackman did a good job catching the crosses, which we'll come to in a moment. But one player I want to talk about is Toto Nsiala, because Pierre went off with a hamstring injury. And Mike, what was your thoughts on Toto, who obviously hadn't been in the team for a while?
Yeah, it was interesting, really. When we saw Aaron Pierre limping around, we all looked at each other with a bit of fear in our eyes. We were like, oh, Christ, that means Toto's coming on next. And even the stadium announcer, when he announced it, sounded nervous, sort of announcing the substitution, which was a bit of a worry. And sort of, it's not to discredit Toto Nsiala, who under Hurst in his first spell was absolutely brilliant. An imperious defender, physical, strong, fast. Not the greatest distributor, but that's not what he's there for. And we thought, since he's come back, he seems a little bit slower of thought, a little bit slower of movement, and he gets caught on the ball a little bit. And we thought, in a high pressure, high speed game, is he going to get swallowed up by it a little bit? Is he going to be a little bit too much for him? And to his absolute credit, he was brilliant. He came in and he did exactly what he needed to do. He was well positioned. He won all of his aerial battles. His clearance and his distribution was absolutely spot on. He was knocking it into channels. He was finding his man. And he even did a couple of his little chops that worked and sort of sent the Wrexham players off for a bit of lunch while he carried on. He was brilliant. And I really, really hope for Toto that is the catalyst from the start for him finding his confidence again, finding his form and becoming that player we know he can be, because that was Toto for me. If he can do that, first name on the team sheet, we didn't miss Aaron Pierre, and he's been our rock recently. And so a real credit for Toto to coming back in, because I thought he was possibly somebody who's going to get shipped out in this window, and he might still, you never know. But somebody that perhaps was a little bit surplus to requirements under Gareth Ainsworth. But an incredible cameo, really.
And that tackle, we've got to talk about again. So for those who weren't there at the game or didn't watch it,
I'm going to get a tattoo of Toto crunching into Aaron McLean. That's the next one.
So James McLean's on the left-hand side coming in. Toto, it's on the byline. He comes flying in. He crunches him. He goes flying, lands on his shoulder, and then it goes for a goal kick. And there was quite a few of them actually in the second half where we managed to clear the ball and it hit them and it sent them into, like, they were proper whinging about it. And he put his hands behind his back and started a tirade at the referee and got booked for it. And it says quite a lot, because this morning I retweeted the video that someone had shared, and I've got I think over 3,500 likes, and I've got comments from Wrexham and Barnes, virtually every single football club in the EFL have said, "Oh, good on it," and people are asking, loads of people are asking who that was, who's the legend, and asking their manager to sign him because they want to see that from their players as well. So a great moment, and I thought not only did that tackle kind of encapsulate everything we saw from Shooty Town players last night, but a big one for me was the reaction of the players. So Carl Winchester goes up to him and basically bumps chests with him, pushes him on the shoulder. And Mike, I thought that it was testament to the players' resolve and effort that we saw from last night, because we've talked about increased effort, but that was superb from an effort perspective, and also the players really wanted it, because when we played Wrexham in the FA Cup last year, they didn't look arsed. They really cared last night.
But that tackle, what made me laugh about that tackle is Toto looks like he might be the most laid-back man in the world. I imagine if you know him personally, he's probably very, very chilled out, very laid back. And when first of all, he's gone into that tackle 100% full blood, but he gets up and he gives McLean a volley of abuse. And I thought, I've never seen that from Toto. I've never seen that side of his.
Which I won't repeat. He said, you effing something.
Effing something,
effing something.
But if we can harness Toto's inner animal and get it out on the pitch, what an asset! It was something I'd never seen before. I've watched that about 30 times, 300 times maybe on repeat. It's the moment of the match for me, even though we won 2-1. Chris, you must have loved that as well.
A crunching tackle, wasn't it? Absolutely fantastic. And like you guys, I was going to comment on the reaction afterwards as well. A few choice words, but Carl Winchester almost chest bumping him. Our players were so fired up that they were close at that point, weren't they? That's like the 97th minute of a game that's supposed to be going to about 98. So we're very, very close at that point, and those players were fired up to get the job done. And Toto, as you said, hadn't put a foot wrong. And his problem this season has not been that he's been terrible in all games, but too often he's just made a stinking error that costs us a goal, and it's happened game after game. It happened under Ainsworth. I think it was the Blackpool game when he shipped a goal effectively in that game, and we were 1-up in that game and went on to lose. And ever since then, he's barely featured, not just in the starting lineup, but even on the bench. He's been out of the squad. So he very much came in from the cold last night, probably only because of how few players we've got at the minute. Otherwise, I doubt he'd have been on the bench again. And as you say, Mike, maybe he seized his opportunity, because he'll have certainly shown Gareth Ainsworth the defender he can be, because that was a player who kept his concentration for the full 45 he was on the pitch. Whether he'll get more chances, who knows? But if that's his last appearance in the Shrewsbury shirt, then he goes out on a high. And if it's not his last appearance in the Shrewsbury shirt, then he needs to show that that's Toto Uncial and not what we've seen for too often this season.
I think all the subs last night were excellent, excellently timed, first and foremost. I mean, they sort of got forced on us a little bit in some of the injuries that we had, but the people that came on, we sort of, there's no real break in it. We just carried on what we were doing, and they slotted in absolutely brilliantly. I thought Winchester, speaking to people who it might be his last appearance in the Shrewsbury shirt, I thought he was excellent when he came on. And he was like we said with Toto, like we said with Marquis, he was the Winchester that I thought we were going to see, that we should have been seeing. And I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I thought George Nurse, when he came on, for a guy that hasn't played any football really for 2 years, slotted in seamlessly, was winning headers, was winning physical battles, distributing well. And My concern is it's one of those sort of lightning in a bottle moments where it is a derby and it's a big game and our players were well up for it. Can they repeat that in the next few games? Can they bring this spirit and this attitude into the remaining games of the season and keep us up? Or was it just a one-off like Birmingham seemed and then we had a pretty poor run after that?
I actually wanted to share something here because someone almost wanted to share, because if you look at our results, and for those who are watching the video, you can see this now. So obviously we beat Birmingham, we lost 3 games, and we drew to Wigan, we beat Lincoln, we had 2 draws, and then we lost to Leyton Orient. So we lost to Leyton Orient, then we won again. And yeah, it's I thought it was quite interesting. If you look at our last 6 games, yeah, we've lost 1, we've won 2 and drawn 3. That's not bad, is it? And I think it's also really important to see that, yeah, we lost 1 game and we bounced back now. Obviously, we had the Huddersfield game cancelled. That would have been a really tough fixture. They spent a lot of money this January transfer window already. But I think it's really interesting how we've bounced back that quickly, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. And 6 games there. And as you say, 9 points from those 6 games, 2 wins, 3 draws. That's a point and a half a game. Just to say we've got 20 games left this season, a point and a half a game for the rest of the season would be another 30 points. That would get us safe.
Yeah.
So we're starting to show the form that gives us a chance.
Yeah.
We're starting to show the form that gives us a bit of a chance.
Yeah, it was a massive 3 points. Puts us in a good in a much better league position now. Coming into the January transfer window now, and hopefully we can turn this around a little bit and keep the momentum going. Just want to mention of Wrexham. So apparently, I don't know how true it is, but apparently Wrexham have got the 2nd biggest budget in the division. And if you look at the back of the program, if you saw that image that was doing the rounds on Twitter, you look at the squads, like their squad versus our squad, absolutely massive difference in terms of the size of the squads. But I don't know. I feel like they're maybe potentially, are they overpaying players? Because like that team didn't look like the second. Wrexham aren't one of the best teams we've seen this season. Nowhere near Birmingham, not even near Wickham. Like not only near like Barnsley. They don't look like the 2nd or 3rd like most expensive squad in the division. And I think they overpay. Like Paul Mullins for me, like was poor again. He scored 2 goals in the league this year. He's started quite a few games off the bench, but he's had I think 24 games he's been involved in now. He scored 2 goals. Marcus has got 6 in the league. And I just wonder whether they're overpaying players on kind of the ride they've been on. But then not only their performances were poor, I just thought their tactics were so strange. So basically what they seemed to do in the second half was just continuously cross the ball. And it wasn't even from the byline. Sometimes Barnett was doing crosses from like almost halfway in the half. And when you got 3 centre backs, it was just heading practice for us. And then they just kept bringing on more strikers. It was very strange.
But what's Jamal Blackman really good at? Picking high crosses out. That's his like main
absolutely
core
fucking
skill.
massive.
Yeah. And then the 3 centre halves in front of him, what are Aaron Pierre, Morgan Feeney, and Josh Feeney good at? They're good at heading the ball away.
And Toto.
Toto and Toto, yeah. But they have a torrid time if somebody's running at them and dribbling around them and passing slide rule balls between them. That's when we're picked apart. So the crossing was nuts. They totally played into our hands. Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
And what was your thoughts on the subs from Wrexham, Chris?
Yeah, I just didn't think they made any sense. Well, they did at first, obviously 65 minutes, something like that. They bring on Paul Mullin, extra striker on the pitch. Fair enough. They're 2-1 down and trying to chase the game. That makes some sense. But when that didn't work, he turns to Jack Marriott, throws on another striker. And now they've got 3 strikers on the pitch, and then later on he threw on Mo Fall as well, and they've got 4 strikers on the pitch, which sounds attacking, but strikers need somebody to get the ball to them. And what Wrexham left was a whopping great hole in the middle of the pitch. And when we were clearing those crosses that you've just been talking about, usually in a game when you're under pressure, the opposition have got someone there to win the ball and bring it back again. That wasn't happening, and we were actually getting opportunities to relieve pressure because of the way they'd set themselves up. So, like when Castledine went down injured for us, we brought on Jordan Shipley, and that was quite an attacking substitution in a way for a team that's trying to hold on to a game. We could have brought on more of a holding midfielder at that point to maybe try and shore things up a bit, but I suspect Ainsworth's looking out there and thinking that actually, we need somebody of that type on the pitch, because the way Wrexham was set up, if we can clear that, he was probably thinking there was a third goal in that for us as well. And, we did have a couple of counter-attacks that could easily have ended up with us opening up a wider gap, as it were, and taking the pressure off. And Wrexham helped us in that regard. And I was very surprised because, Phil Parkinson isn't an idiot. He's clearly not an idiot. He's managed over 1,000 games. He's got a good record at Wrexham in the last few years. And yet I couldn't make sense of what he was trying to achieve. I thought, do you really think just chucking more strikers at us is the way you're going to break us down? Because, we were clearly dealing with those crosses they were pummeling into the box. They needed to find something else. And I thought they played into our hands. And, that's great. I'm quite happy with that. But I certainly wasn't bothered when they chucked on the fourth striker, because they didn't know what to do. They were all running into the same spaces. It wasn't working.
Well, they weren't even running. That was the weird thing. They were running without the ball, but they weren't running with the ball. We've mentioned this earlier in the podcast. It doesn't. I don't understand. If I was an analyst watching Shrewsbury Town, you'd be like, get the ball and run at them. And that's what's been a big Achilles heel for us this season. But then they weren't passing the ball. And then when we were clearing headers, because they didn't have much of midfield left, quite a few times, Lloyd and Marquis came deep and won a foul.
Yep.
And that happened 3 or 4 or 5 times, maybe even more, where they won fouls. And then obviously then we were going to have to jog up, run forward and waste more time. And there was 8 minutes extra time. 8 seemed a little bit excessive to me. Maybe 6 might have been a bit fairer, but 8 seemed a bit excessive. But their tactics were really strange and quite odd from Parkinson and Wrexham. And I thought it was quite interesting when Ollie Rathbone went off. They kind of did a bit of zoom on him and he could fuming, and their players didn't seem very happy, which for a team that could have gone top, it was quite strange behaviour from their players in terms of the frustration, Mike.
Yeah, I don't want to concentrate too much on Wrexham because we beat them when they were poor. I think we've gone quite a long way into this podcast, and nobody's mentioned Luca Hall. I thought Luca Hall had his best game for the Town last night. I did mention him
very quickly in a nanosecond, but he was really good. Yeah.
I thought he shackled McLean and he dealt with him brilliantly, and he was also a great attacking threat as well. And
we had 2 men. It was McLean and block 19 on him. But he had a good game.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He had a bit of help from 19 and 18. Yeah, but I thought he was really good last night. And the other player I thought was really good, and I was worried when he got injured, was Alex Gilliard. I thought he got through a huge amount of work and he covered so much ground and he really marshalled in the middle.
He went on one lazy dribble as well in the second half, which was the winger of Gilliard, who we remember from the first time he signed for us, the younger.
He showed some really nice feet there. But I just thought it's worth calling out some of those players that maybe don't get the plaudits, who had really excellent games last night. I know Chris mentioned Ojo as well, who I thought had a really good 90 minutes. So, to a man, they were excellent. And I just think we can say Wrexham was shit because they were, and I think their fans are all.
We made them shit though.
Saying, we didn't just play a shit team. We nullified them through some of this excellent work from some of our players, and let's sort of concentrate on giving our players some of the credit as well. Really, you got anybody you want to call out there, Chris? Any other standout performances?
I think over this we've gone through most of them. I thought they were all excellent last night. I think we've talked about Marquis, we've talked about Lloyd a bit. You could talk about him more. He was fantastic. Jamal Blackman, I thought that was the best I've seen him looking goal in terms of looking really confident on coming out, taking crosses cleanly. Never felt panicky. And while he's impressed everyone, I think, since he's come in. There has been the odd still hair-raising moment, as it were, but this is a guy who hasn't played a lot of football for a year, and he seems to be settling down now. And that to me last night looked like a decent top quality goalkeeper, and it gives you confidence. And I think that helps the defence to feel confident as well. So I think he deserves a big pat on the back as well. And they all do. It was fantastic. It was great, and they've just got to be able to play like that, not just against the Birminghams and the Wrexhams. They've got to go to Charlton next week and produce something similar, because that's what we're going to need. We can't just beat the teams who are in the top 6. We've got to pick points up elsewhere. So, the test for them now is to show that that's not just we're playing Wrexham, we're pumped. They've got to pump themselves up week in, week out, as it were, to do that.
Yeah, but the points we picked up in the last few weeks though has helped, because at Ainsworth, when he first came in, we were.
League table, Ollie. We are flashy tonight, aren't we? For people who if you're only listening to this, you can't see, but we got the league table on screen now. Very fancy.
But sorry, Ollie, when we took over, when Ainsworth took over, I think he was I've actually saved the league table somewhere when he took over. Where have I put it? So I did actually try and remember. Oh, we go. I found it. So basically, I did record it. So when he took over, we had 8 points, and we had the similar 8 points as well as Burton, and we were bottom and with minus 14 goal difference. Goal difference has still got a bit worse, but we have obviously shipped a few 4s. But we've gone from 8 to 20 points. When the
in fewer
Orient
games, Ollie, that was 8 from 15 games.
Well, do you know what the mad thing is? When Ainsworth took over, Orient were 20th. So Orient were 20th, and they've gone flying. Crawley were on 13 points, so they've got 7 extra points now. But yeah, Shrewsbury've got 12 in that period, and we've really have caught up the teams above us. Obviously, Peterborough free falling, Northampton are not far away, but yeah, it certainly looks a lot better than when Ainsworth first took over.
Yeah, it certainly does.
I was going to say, you're probably going to say the same thing. There's a few 6-point swings as well, sort of coming up, where we're playing. I mean, more towards the end of the season, where we're playing teams in and around us. Those games will be massive, and if it's just a case of trying to take points off teams not in the relegation zone, it's a much more difficult thing. But when you're playing the teams around you, and I want to see that attitude in those 6-pointers. Those are the key games for me. Last night was 3 points we didn't expect. Completely like a bit of a free hit and three points that were out of the blue. So it makes a massive jump. But if we can take 3 points off the guys we're trying to leapfrog, that's the thing for me, isn't it? Those are the games that are key.
Yeah. Any final comments on the Wrexham game before we move on to looking at the January transfer window?
I did have one thing I noticed last night, going back to Ainsworth. He will not let players stand off their opposition number. And you probably noticed this sat behind him, Chris. He is constantly saying, close the gap, close the gap. If you watch him, if there's a fullback on our side of the halfway line and their fullback's on their side, he's trying to get them up, trying to close them. He doesn't want to give the opposition a minute. And I think it took him a long time to get them to do that, because I think Paul Hurst was generally inclined to sort of defend his own half and send them back. And it was really, really lovely to see him calling the players up and closing those gaps and making us in-your-face front foot team. And that was just something I picked up because I noticed him doing it. It must have been about 5 or 6 times. And it's odd that you see the manager do the same thing. And it almost like he was on the pitch. Yeah. But I thought he gives us an extra man on the pitch a little bit with his, he's very active in instructing the players what to do. He doesn't set the team out and stand there and watch it. He really gets them moving around. I think, at our level where players have limitations, you need somebody who's going to talk them through what they've got to do on the pitch. So, he was a physical presence and a part of the performance. He didn't just set them up and they played. He was involved, I thought. So I just thought I'd call that out as well, because I thought he was excellent last night, Ainsworth, as a sort of tip of the cap all round.
He knew what the game meant. He came up and spoke in the Sovereign before the game. Yeah. Actually, my son's got a broken arm at the minute, and we got him to sign his plaster cast, which was a nice moment as well. And while he was doing that, I did quickly say to him, good luck tonight. And I said, you've really got to beat Wrexham. And he goes, I've been hearing a lot of that around Shrewsbury. I know this is the one. And you could tell he bought into what it means to us as a fan base, as it were. It wasn't just another game. Sometimes managers will say about a derby, for us, it's just another game. He was having none of that. He bought very much into this matters. We want to go out there and perform for you because we know what it would mean to you to win this game. And I think he's, we already loved Ainsworth, I think, but he's helped us build a closer relationship to some of our team again. I suspect the majority of the fans right now feel positively about John Marquis. I'm not sure that was the case, 48 hours ago. And it's amazing the difference one game can make. And he's been doing better lately anyway. I think he was winning people around, but last night I think he's taken huge steps on that journey.
Yeah, he's turned the fortunes around a lot of players, hasn't he? It's given them self-belief. It's given them belief. He believes in them. And his positivity is having an impact on the players and our results.
In his post-match, he was calling them my boys. They're my boys. Yeah, there's a real sense of team and community.
I do find that quite funny. We're going to come on to how many of our boys, and whether this is like Trigger and his broomstick, where he has like 15 handles and 20 broom heads, because our boys, I do find it quite funny, and I do love him. And I understand what he's doing. He's saying all this stuff because he wants to support the players, and he's saying the right thing at the time. But we're going to come on to the January transfer window in a second. And a lot of his boys he's got rid of the last few weeks. I think let's close the Wrexham game there. A truly momentous game. Absolutely gutted it wasn't there. And if people are going to have this memory with their families and with their kids and with their friends and family for years to come. So finally, and also as well, if we have got this takeover coming, hopefully, Wrexham had the opportunity to to beat us at home when we were, let's say, not very rich or didn't have much of a budget. So let's see what we can do going forward. So let's have a little break there and let's go on to the January transfer window. January transfer window is upon us. We're near the 17th of January as we do this now. So the squad looks a bit different to when Ainsworth first came in, during the squad. I've also changed the little graphic I do. So on the video again, you can see the Shooter Town squad, which I also put on Twitter. Yeah, there's been a lot of movement. So of our boys, it happened quite quickly. Sado Jr. went back to Arsenal. Then a bit of a surprise. Rossiter went off to Oldham on loan. That's him done now because he was on a 1-year deal. Cady was sent back to Rotherham. Tommy O'Reilly was recalled by Villa and promptly went to MK Dons on loan. And then Young, the goalkeeper, has gone on loan to Brackley. So obviously a lot of outgoings there. But the big one is obviously we have lost Tom Bloxham, who has signed for Blackpool. So that was a big surprise. I would say probably deflated the fan base quite considerably in the week. I'm led to believe that the fee was about 350k plus add-ons. So obviously that number will increase with 20%, which is quite a standard thing in football these days, 20% sell-on fee. So if he does move on and they do sell him, they will obviously get a piece of that pie. But Mike, what was your kind of reaction to seeing that that Bloxham had left?
Well, he's clearly the problem, isn't he? You know, we shipped him out and beat Wrexham, so he obviously was a real issue. No, yeah, really disappointed initially because he was the only exciting player we had. He was everybody's favourite, and he was sort of electric when he was on the ball. In the cold light of day, when you look at it, at the point he was in his contract, you know, he had 6 months left, and we had an option of a year, so let's call it 18 months. It's the absolute time to sell him to get maximum value. And you know, when you reflect on it, he wasn't long ago on loan at Morecambe. He's had a good start to this season, so that's as much as we're going to get for him. And I think with sort of a raw financial head on, you think if we can get good money in for Tom Bloxham, it's the only lever we can pull to do something in this transfer window to bring in the 4 players that we need to improve us to stay up. If that comes off and we reinvest this money wisely, that looks like a masterstroke. Because Tom Bloxham, as good as he was, wasn't keeping us up on his own. He's been in that team all season, and we were threatened with relegation. So it's almost like, you know, we sort of need to speculate to accumulate a little way. And he was the only saleable asset we had that was going to make us any money in this window. So whilst I would love him to stay at the Town, I'd loved him to develop his career with us. I got the feeling that even if we'd have triggered his extension, he wouldn't have signed another deal in 18 months' time. I think he would have gone for free. And how many times have we done that, where we've let promising, valuable, you know, cash accruing players go for free because we've held on to them too long, thinking we don't want to be a selling club, but actually there's a little bit of that needed to be done by the Town. So it was disappointing to see him go, but I think the right move financially and the right move to give us a chance this January. I think if we hadn't been threatened with relegation, if we'd have been looking like we were going to finish mid-table, we'd have had a better chance of keeping him. And I think we would have activated that extension and said, look, give us 12 more months and see where we are. And you know, I think that would have worked a little bit better. But I think it's just a victim of circumstance, financially, relegation, all that sort of stuff. So wish him all the best. Loved him to have stayed. The question is what we do with that money. If we plug some financial black holes and bring some loans in, it's a waste of time. We may as well kept him. So the pressure is really on sort of the recruitment and the director of football to use that opportunity wisely, I think. And
also depends how Bloxham develops. So I get quite a stick for Bloxham because people say I've been quite critical of him. I've only been critical of him because he's shown real talent, and at times he's showed that he has potential to be a good League One player. But I don't think it would be unfair to say for the most of the time he's been at the club, and he's been playing for us since 2021 season, he hasn't been that good. So, like, obviously in that first season, he scored 2 goals. And the next couple of seasons, he didn't score any goals. Went 2 seasons without a goal. Obviously, he went to Morecambe, didn't pull up any trees there. Came back, did all right. And then in the last month, he's been really good. He has been really good. So I get the reason why I was critical of him per se is because he's shown that he has talent. He's shown he's got raw pace. He can dribble. He can shoot. He's a threat. But consistently, he would make bad decisions, and he wouldn't necessarily perform to the standard that you show. He was inconsistent. So, yeah, I think it was the right decision from a financial perspective. As you say, Mike, it depends on how we invest that money and then how Bloxham then progresses. And sometimes also players need change. They need, I think, maybe a fresh environment for him. Going to a new club, different coaches could spark him and help him progress up to a new level. Remember Tom Bradshaw wasn't really doing much at Shrewsbury. He went to Walsall. Now he's played a lot of his career in the Championship, and maybe that can be the spark to help him develop. But yeah, I'm sure, Chris, I'm sure your son was quite gutted to hear that Tom Bloxham had left.
Yeah, Tom Bloxham held a special place in his heart. Scored the first ever Shrewsbury goal he saw, and that was obviously that stunning bicycle kick. So special player for him, and he was gutted. Yeah. I was disappointed. My initial reaction was shock and real disappointment. And I also thought, obviously, that weakens our chances of staying up. You take some time and think about it and calm down a little bit, as it were. And right now, I think we can't judge whether it was the right decision until the 3rd of February when the window closes. If on the 3rd of February, we've brought in 2 or 3 really good players and the side as a whole looks better, then fair enough. If we haven't, then it feels like a mistake, because right now, even though we've got the wonderful Wrexham game that we've just been talking about, the squad is weaker for the loss of Tom Bloxham, and over the course of the season, he would be missed based on what we've currently got. If we can bring in a couple of players who can make a difference, then, fair enough. If we can do that, money in the bank, and we've got potentially a better side, I could get the logic. So, but I can't judge that yet because we've got another couple of weeks before the window closes. So, let's see what Gareth Ainsworth and Mickey Moore can do between them in those couple of weeks. We hear they're working on quite a lot at the moment. There's quite a few things coming. I think Ainsworth's got a few players that might be familiar to him coming in. I think we're going to see some ex-Wycombe players, I would guess, from the sound of things. One of them's been well publicised in the media today. I think a lad called Dom Gape. So I think we're getting him. So yeah, we'll see whether these people can really make a difference. The other one, of course, that we haven't touched on there, Ollie, and I don't know if he's on your list to come on to. He's still on your list at the moment, but I suspect if you were updating this at the start of next week, he won't be, as Carl Winchester, because every hint in the world is that he's going to be back in Ireland very, very soon.
Yeah. So there's rumours
another
that
big player to replace.
Yeah, big player to replace. Yeah, he hasn't performed that well this season. I get the impression. You get the impression that maybe there's some other things on his mind. So maybe he needs to have a change of scenery as well. And then obviously we've had 2 players come in. We've got Biggins back in on loan. So obviously, as Mike said, he wasn't in the squad, unfortunately for him, against Wrexham. And then we signed a striker. We signed Callum Stewart, who's come all the way down from the National League North, not just the National League. He's a young lad, played for Coventry Sphinx. Then he went to Leamington. He's played 18 months for Leamington, and this season he scored 14 goals in 23 games. From what I've seen and clips I've seen online, he seems like a really hard-working goal scorer, a bit of a poacher in the box who's got a good finish on him. So I saw the beauty of social media. Some non-league fans were saying that they'd seen Gareth Ainsworth watching him. So obviously it's good to see that Gareth Ainsworth is also casting his eye on players. Last time I heard about one of our managers going to watch a player was last time we heard about Max Matter. So hopefully we have a bit more success than that. I imagine he didn't cost us a lot of money, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30k maybe, in terms of getting him out of his contract at Leamington. But it's exciting to sign someone who's a project, and obviously a player that you've held very close to your heart, Chris. Ado came from National League North, didn't he, when he came to us?
He did. Dan Udo came to us from Telford, but it took him a couple of years, didn't it? So it'll be interesting. Yeah. I don't think we need to put too much pressure on Stuart and expect that he's going to score the goals to keep us up. And if anything, I think it's going to be harder for him than Dan Udo. Dan Udo did come from a professional background. He'd gone through the academy at Crewe, and then he dropped into the non-league game before working his way up. This lad has started really, really low, built himself up to Leamington, and is now making this massive jump up to us. But he's never experienced professional football at all, at any point in his career. So it's a massive, massive change. And I think we have to be patient with him. If he comes on and is a sub in a game or two and struggles, people need to not get on his back, I think. I see, who knows, he may end up getting loaned out next season if he hasn't clicked, and he might be one we're looking at for a year after that. I don't know. But equally, who knows? He could come on in one of the games, score a goal, and fight. It happens. Jamie Vardy made a massive jump and proved it can be done. But there's a lot of players out there who try, and not very many Jamie Vardys. So I think we just have to be patient. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. He smacks with somebody who's planned down the line. I think we'll see fleeting glimpses of him this season where we just need some legs at the end of the game. But I think he'll be he's probably targeted for a loan next season to try and hit the squad the season after, once he's beefed up a bit, because he looks quite small. You can tell he's only been playing part-time football because he doesn't look like he's been doing the sort of physical work that full-time footballers do with the professional setup and the coaches. He's got some muscle to put on, I think, and stuff. And I said to the lad sat next to me, we couldn't bring him on last night because he hadn't put his out of office on, because he was working in an office as well. This is a guy who's coming from a completely different world. And when he came over at the end of the game last night and he was applauding the fans with the players around him, he wasn't stood that far away from Aaron Pierre. And I just thought, I couldn't even imagine him going up against Aaron Pierre in a match, because it would look like such a mismatch. But I might be totally wrong. Like you say, he might be that rough diamond from the non-league who comes in and sets the world alight and nobody was expecting it. But I think if anybody's expecting him to be a like-for-like replacement for Bloxham, I think forget that immediately. I think he's probably not done many favours by the timing of his signing. It was probably I believe it was in line before Bloxham even went. He said more one of those development players, I think.
Yeah, he said that he'd heard about interest in Shrewsbury like 10 days before he signed. And then, I think Bloxham came out of the woods. I think that was planned. That was Blackpool. Obviously, were impressed what they saw and went ahead and signed him. And for me, he signed a 2.5-year deal with the option of an extension for Shrewsbury. So effectively, he's got a 3.5-year contract. So this season and another 3 to develop and see how he gets on. I was on a fun side. How buzzing must he be? So as a young lad that obviously loves his football, he's been playing part-time football for Leamington, obviously enjoying it, got a full-time job and working. And then all of a sudden, he's a full-time professional. Him and his family and himself must be absolutely buzzing. I think it's a lovely story. Hopefully he can do something for us. But good to see us. Obviously, he's signing a player who's potentially got good potential.
He's 23 as well, Ollie. He probably thought the chance had passed him by. It's not like we're signing him as an 18-year-old. He's still relatively young, but he's not a babe in arms, as it were, is he? So he's going to want to make an impression, I'm sure. Last night was probably good for him, even though he didn't get on the pitch, just to be a part of the squad on the bench, to experience what it's like, because that crowd last night will be very different to anything that he's had at Leamington. And that'll just give it... I think that Gareth Ainsworth said he watching Marquis and Lloyd, he'll have an idea now of what Ainsworth expects from his strikers. And I'm sure that was good for him, and I'm sure that'll set him in good stead. And he hasn't even trained with the squad yet, apparently. So he's going to come into training on Monday for the first time, and it's all going to be very, very different for him. So good luck to him. As you say, great story.
He must be loving it. He's obviously handed his notice in at his job. He's now a professional footballer, and he's got 3 days off. It's perfect.
It's not a bad life, is it?
Perfect. Perfect start.
I hope he doesn't think the Meadows like that every week. He's been really disappointed at his next home game, isn't he? Yeah.
Just to put in context as well, just doing a bit, just looking as well at the attendances he's used to playing in front of is normally three figures. So it ranges from like 400 to 900. There was a 1,100 when they played this team. You heard of Hereford before? When they used to be in the Football League? So 1,000 fans there. A good, interesting signing. And obviously we've still got the squad of those who are watching on video on the screen. Mike, where would you say the holes are in this squad?
I would say probably a fullback. We need an extra centre half, an extra fullback, a ball playing midfielder, an extra striker. Everywhere, aren't they? And I think it sort of goes back to the departures, really. When you look down the list, apart from Bloxham, who we talked about as being maybe a transfer of necessity, I can't say I'm disappointed with any of the players that have gone in terms of what they provided to us this season. Sego Jr. saw nothing out of him. Rossiter, his trial game was good. I knew you were there as well, Chris, weren't you? He looked brilliant. And he's flat to deceive since then. He runs around, huffs and puffs, but he hides a lot in games as well, I noticed. So, good luck to him. Kayode, he kept Chris Skip busy, but he didn't really do much. Tommy O'Reilly, is it surprising he's gone on loan to a League Two club now? I don't think he was ready for League One. I don't think physically he could deal with the challenge of League One. And if we were
different type of team as well, Mike.
He wasn't getting enough ball, was he? So lower level, more ball. That's where he needs to be now to develop. He wasn't right for us. And Young, whatever's going on with him, I don't know. He didn't seem to be able to get a look in. I think Gav Cowan rang up. He needed a goalkeeper, so he's got him for a month. We're not losing anything in that, I don't think, and it gives us huge opportunity to.
Well, we
plug
probably
some of the
save money.
So
definitely save some money. We've managed so far, touch wood, to keep our best 2 loans as well. And Oji's done all right. I'm quite happy to keep him. And yeah,
Okay, great for the
Cassadine and
squad, yeah.
Feeney.
Yeah.
So that's good to see as well. So yeah, I think that's covered off. Anything else on transfers, Chris, before we talk about takeover?
No, just that I think we're going to see players over the next week. I'm sure by the time we go to Charlton, there'll be a couple of new players in the squad. I think Dom Gapes, we've mentioned the name, and I'm sure there'll be others. But they've kept them quite quiet, haven't they? They're very good at keeping this stuff out of the press these days. We seem to get less leaks than we used to. Which is sad in a way, but also good in a way. I kind of like it when a transfer drops and you've got no idea. Yeah, it's kind of more fun.
Yeah, what's what? I don't ruin it and post it online. But no, in terms of also keeping secrets as well, I think it's been quite exceptional that we still have no clue who these Americans are trying to buy the club are, which is quite rare for Shrewsbury because normally things come out. I have heard a few things that it's getting close. Now I don't know what the definition of close is. Is that like close in a month, or close in a few months, or close in a few weeks? But I hear that it is progressing still. Silence doesn't mean it's stopped. So yeah, fingers crossed that can go through. Hopefully the takeover can be completed, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of noise out there that it's quite close, isn't it? Really close, as in, potentially imminent. I don't know. But I did try to fish last night. I had a chat with Liam Dooley. He listens to this pod, so he'll hear me say this. He's far too professional to say anything he shouldn't, so I don't think I'm dropping any secrets here. But there's been a lot of noise about since the Tom Bloxham transfer. People worried that the fact we couldn't keep him might mean that the takeover's a long way away or not even happening. So I thought, what's the harm? I'll ask him. I said to Liam, takeover's still okay, and he was categorical with me that everything's fine. Takeover's progressing. He didn't talk about timescale to me. He's far too professional for that, but he did reassure me that. So hopefully we can safely do that on this podcast, that it is all very real and it is all progressing as they expect. And I don't think he's got any other expectation than that we'll have a new owner by the time we're playing next season.
Yeah, that would be good. And obviously, we can get that takeover completed. And obviously, then obviously, it's going to miss the January transfer window now. It doesn't sound like, from what Gareth Owens was saying, that the potential takeovers putting money in the club early. So yeah, probably have to wait until the summer to see how that's going to play out. But yeah, good to hear that it's progressing. One final thing I just want to mention on the podcast. So have you guys heard about this retro football shirt shop that has popped up in the town? It's called the 12th Man Retro. Have you guys seen the shop?
No, I've not been in yet.
I've not been in it yet.
Another retro shirt. I'm wearing Glenn's old old sort of kit. So maybe I need a new one. But it's somewhere I've been planning to go, but with kids clubs at the weekends, I never get up town anymore. But we are going tomorrow, so maybe I'll pop in. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's good. Yeah. Say hello to Sean. Sean runs the shop, and he's been very kind, and he's given one lucky fan a £50 voucher in the shop. So the question is, which team did Tom Bloxham score against for his first goal in that one season? So the overhead bicycle kick, volley, scissor kick, you want to say. Which team was it against? I'll put it on Twitter. And if you can also email us.
Can I answer?
Well, no, you can't answer. Email us in, or I'll put it on Twitter and maybe I'll pin it. So I'll put the question, I'll put what was the question on the podcast? Yeah. But you put the answer in there, and then with Sean, we'll pick someone who's the winner, and then whoever the lucky person is will win a very generous £50 voucher to spend in Sean's shop. So yeah,
is it worth mentioning where Sean's shop is? He's in the Parade, isn't he? I think.
Yeah.
So people, if they want to find him, he's in the Parade, and the guy whoever wins, take your voucher in.
Yeah. We'll post him. We'll also retweet his Twitter account out. He's got, obviously, as you would expect, he's got a website as well. So we'll post a few things out as well to support him, because he seems like a good man. He's a good big Shrewsbury Town fan, good to see that he's doing well, and good to see a new shop in town as well. So Mike, what's your final thoughts on this evening?
Just a little message for the Wrexham board and fans out there. Stick that on your documentary. That's what I would say to them. Can't wait to see it flash up on Disney in the new year. Not that I'll watch it. I haven't watched a minute of it. Not interested. But they can have some tears over that again in the new year, hopefully.
So yeah.
Well, they filmed us for it last year, didn't they? And didn't use us.
Yeah. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
What was the score against Mike? What was the score on Thursday night?
Oh, what, 2-1 Shrewsbury beat Wrexham? That one, yeah. That one where John Marquis scored 2 excellent goals and Wrexham looked terrible. Yeah, that one, yeah. I remember.
So yeah, absolutely superb night. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching and listening. And yeah, we'll be back again soon.